Okay,
Little
testing,
board.
testing. Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Our audio's up. Hello. Kara, will you will you,
Hello.
there, perfect.
Excellent.
And then let's try to get some ambient. The game audio is up. Hello, everybody out there. Hi.
Hi, James.
James Edward Smith says hi, Kara.
Hi.
Let us know if
How
the
do
audio
the
sounds all right.
How do we all sound?
Everybody, we are getting started here. I'm just going to make sure I can see this and that. Okay, great.
Uh-oh. Something's coming. One moment.
We just need to get our notes back on screen. What?
I think this just crashed my computer.
We got a whole frozen computer here. But if I can open the notes up on my computer, right? Okay.
Testing. Oh, nice. The audio's coming through, but that's not what we want. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Thursday Night Live. We are very live at the moment, and just having to manage a computer crash. So give us. Luckily,
despite the fact that we have multiple computers here, sometimes that doesn't help.
I think we just got. Okay, we got a response. Okay, we're good.
Okay, cool.
We're good.
You're back.
All right. So welcome to Thursday Night Live, a live streaming series from the Mackenzie Art Gallery. So I'm Kep Limke.
I'm Jonathan Carroll.
And we're the digital programs coordinators at the gallery. So Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Central, we partner with artists, curators, and educators to deliver workshops, panels, or screenings that reflect on how to view, how to make, and how to enjoy digital art. So you as the audience play a crucial role in how this happens. During today's playthrough and artist talk, you're going to be able to ask questions by typing in the chat box. So the chat box is located on the right hand side of the video if you are watching this on a computer or desktop, and it is underneath the video if you are watching this on a tablet or a mobile device. The chat is an important feature of any live stream because this is where you can join in. So during the stream, we're encouraging you to ask questions, whether you are watching it through YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch. If you can't seem to be able to access the chat, make sure you are logged into the platform that you are viewing the live stream on. So we're encouraging you to ask questions at any time, and we'll try our best to answer them. You can also use the chat to talk to other audience members, but always remember there is another person at the end of that username, so please be respectful.
Tonight, we have another exciting playthrough of a video game and a conversation about video games as art practices with Kara Stone, who's on the line with us, and we're going to be playing UnearthU. And before we play, we'd like to begin by acknowledging the land that we are gathered on for this live stream here, where Kat and I are. We are on Treaty 4 territory, and it's the homeland of the Cree, the Saulteaux, the Lakota, the Nakota, the Dakota, and the Métis people. You are gathered wherever you might be out there on the other side of the computer. So, like I said, we're joined by artist and scholar Kara Stone to play through a brand new, I think, unreleased work so far. Yeah, so it's really exciting. So thank you so much for joining us, Kara. And we're going to make you introduce yourself, unfortunately.
Happy to. Thank you both. I'm happy to be here. And I'm Kara Stone. I'm originally from Toronto, Canada. Right now, I'm a PhD student in California, and I've been making games for 8 years maybe. Most of my games are about mental health and wellness, kind of funny or ironic way of approaching it, I think, rather than maybe what is to be expected. And yeah, so this piece that we're playing today is called UnearthU, and it's very early, very pre-release in that it's not finished. It's about halfway, maybe less than halfway through. So this is more like a prototype, and so I'm interested in showing it and hearing what people think, and I also love to show the process of how things go. So yeah, it should be fun.
That is awesome, especially in the context of these live streams. The last live stream, we got to play through a sort of a work that had been finished like last year by Maze Longboat, and so the opportunity to see something that's more in process and talk through it as you're working on it, and also as it's situated inside your art practice as a whole is super. I think it's a perfect opportunity for us in our audience, so I'm really excited about it. And especially, yes, sort of like I just mentioned, I think one thing that I like in playing your games is there is all these different connective through lines that run through a bunch of them in these like topics that you use your games as sort of this avenue to explore. But maybe before we get to that, I was interested. I'd be interested to hear how you started working. If you worked with another media or in another medium before you started working with games, and then maybe how you came to video games.
Yeah. So I had been in like art schools for a really long time. Like I went to an art high school and did theater, and then I went into a BFA and did film production. And I was pretty sure I really liked film, and did a lot of video work, and started to do experimental video work and interactive video during my master's, and then interactive video kind of transitioned over into video games. I met a few people in the Toronto games community who were making games, and I had never heard of indie games before, nor art games. Like, I really thought video games were just like console, high budget computer games made by like men in California, and I had no idea like the whole world of indie games. So met a lot of different people doing that, and so that was really exciting. And I had always loved games and playing them, so I thought it would be fun to try making them. And since then have like pivoted a lot of my academic and creative practice towards video games or like interactive art more broadly. And so still doing other practices and also video games.
It was like what about the interactivity sort of enticed you? Was that was a thing that you're already trying to build into your projects in some way?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think it was just like it felt new and exciting for me, having worked in film for a long time, and it was just like I like being on the computer, and it's like just kind of dorky, so it just felt like fun to try out. Now I think of it less to do with the excitement with interactivity and more to do with like the excitement of phones or personal computers, and kind of weird relationships that we have with our phones in particular, that we're like so intimate with them, and so like it's mine and it's my like little world here right in front of me, and kind of hoping in a very utopian, like really fingers crossed, that maybe phones can like pivot away from what they are and where they seem to be going to, and into something that's like more beneficial and more artistic and more fun. Maybe that's gone though, like maybe that possibility has sailed, but that was fueling me for a while.
It's definitely, I mean, I feel like it's easier for artists like us to at least put things on phones more recently than it was previously. So like that gestures towards that utopia that you're talking about.
Yeah, sure.
But it quickly gets lost among all the other things.
Minecraft clones.
Yeah, or the clones of all the popular apps that are getting put out there.
I wonder,
you were mentioning how, like where you are specifically now, you're a PhD student, and you've sort of been working through games as part of your research as well. Like these are things that are developing side by side. I think this is really interesting because like last week with the Maze Longbow was also a graduate student when he created the work that we were playing through last week, and it's sort of an interesting place for people to be where they're able to sort of push forward what games are and what kind of things people expect through interactive media, as well as like furthering research in these in new or interesting fields. And I was wondering if you maybe could talk about yourself, just where you are right now, like as a student, and how games are informing your research and maybe vice versa.
Yeah, when I did my master's, I felt like really excited about academia and games, and I felt like I had a lot more time to work on them, and was really excited by the stuff that I'm reading. And now I'm going into my 5th year of my PhD with like maybe 1 year left, and I think many late stage PhDs just feel exhausted and tired and drained, and it's hard to feel that excitement about like, ooh, I get to make a creative game and write 300 pages on like anything that I want. But it truly, like what I have found in games academia is like a sense of community and some sense of space to be able to do creative work that's not relying on like selling my games or an industry, that I get to like, okay, I can get some funding and my like day-to-day life is paid for by teaching, and then I can just like make this piece and it doesn't have to sell, you know? So that kind of releases a lot of the pressure of games, which are mostly commercial. And so my PhD research is about psychosocial disability, which is commonly called mental illness, and how we can design games about psychosocial disability, but also for people with psychosocial disability, and reorient the way that most games work, which is like competition and like go, 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 and adrenaline, and getting harder and harder and harder, and or like also trying to get you to keep playing forever. You know, it's like they're trying to suck you in, and there's no end other than, you know, when the money runs out for the production. So trying to approach it in a different way, both in the design, but also like the way that I'm designing it.
Yeah, you sort of, well, like you mentioned a bit ago about before you were introduced to the idea of like indie games and art games, just thinking about games as this commercial thing, which is like probably, I'm thinking that, or like one of the sort of hypotheses of the like live streams we've been doing is that like thinking of video games as art is potentially a novel concept to a lot of people, and then I think also games academia is probably something that is also very novel to people, because the commercial realm of video games is just so large. It's like compared to it, art video games and games academia is just sort of this tiny mouse next to this giant elephant. But you mentioned on a blog post on your website, I'm not sure if this is like really old, but it's the one that's like talking about different things you wish you had known before. One of the ones that I really like, it's very cringy when people bring up things that you wrote on the internet a while ago, but it's great. It's very
because we liked it.
Yeah. And you sort of talk about being in this space of like between art and indie games and academia, which does sort of like let you operate outside the market, maybe, as part of it, and then also as a fun place where you can find community. Can you talk a bit more of that balancing act, or whatever you would call it?
Yeah, I think I must have wrote that like 5 or 6 years ago. Yes. And I still don't actually have an answer to it, like that I don't know exactly how I fit in. And yeah, of trying to be in the middle of these different spaces, and also just kind of changing like how I talk about my work depending on what space that I'm in. Right. Like, you know, do a lot of game studies in which I would be considered like a an indie game designer, but indie games range from like one person on their own with no budget to like a studio of 15 people with like $1 million, and then are putting stuff on Nintendo. And so it can be hard to like relate to that term. And then in the art world, like there's a lot of explaining of why call it a video game. And I often don't actually when I go into like art spaces, like an interactive piece or whatever, interactive digital media, to be more intelligible. And then in games academia, academia just has a lot of problems. And we're just all like kind of distant and yeah.
Something that I sort of liked about I like about this idea is sort of taking some from each part or from each sector, and then like not taking or like trying to stay away from the parts that don't suit you, like the commercialization aspect or like all the other. You're sort of right that each of those fields has its own like half of it that you just don't want to deal with.
That's supposed to be down here. It's all good. Bye. Just thought we would increase like sort of the image of the to make it look more like it's on the phone.
Is that something? How we like? I don't know. It's like obviously it's hard to recommend things to people, but if people who are aspiring game makers, like. Would you recommend trying to seek out a similar balance between those different fields, especially because it's so daunting to think of like entering commercial games as a creator?
Oh my gosh, I think it would really depend on the person and like kind of what support systems they have and what are their goals. For to go into academia, I can see how it would work for some people. Like myself, like if I feel pretty comfortable in it, but you have to like really get to a university that will give you money. Like not you don't. I would not suggest for most people to go if they have to pay money to go into grad school, and especially I'm in the American system. I mean, friends of mine are like $200,000 in debt and just kind of unable to get out of it. And then in the industry, like academia, has just so much sexual abuse and harassment that is coming to light and has been coming to light for years, and so it's hard to suggest to people to go into that. In some of the community work that I've done, it was like teaching marginalized people to make video games and like encourage them into the industry, but then it's like, what industry, they're not going to be able to stay in this industry probably. Many people get pushed out after a short amount of time. So it's very hard to give advice. Like in terms of me as an artist and what I want for the future of games, I want people to go into this avenue and to make it like bigger and more exciting and to have more community and to see the really exciting work that comes from it. Because I think it can be really cool, but just the practicalities of that, it's hard to kind of stand behind.
Yeah, it's like almost like a just a health hazard in all these different ways, where you're at risk of being being taken advantage of in so many different ways, especially on the commercial side. But like I think you started working through Dames Making Games in Toronto, right? That was one of the first like communities that you started making games through.
Yeah, that's when I made my first game.
Cool, awesome. It's like, I mean, the people. It often seems like the people who have like the sort of the most DIY approach and the least resources are like that's like the spaces that are best for like helping people get into the field rather than the spaces that are bigger and have more money already. But
let's play the game.
Yeah, let's keep talking about.
Turn this off. There we go. Back to that. Looks a bit better now. Yeah,
we don't look as transparent now. jump into this because there's a lot to talk about in the context of your practice, I think. So I just I've been playing this. This is on UnearthU. It's a very time-based game, as a lot of your work is. Like time is a big component to it. And I played this on my other computer, so I'm a few more days into it on that computer, and then this is a fresh one. So this will be the first day of stuff.
So folks who are the audience seeing it for the first time will get no spoilers, or spoilers if they will not be playing it if they play it a different way. And I believe the audio, there is audio here, and it should be coming out for folks in the audience.
So this is UnearthU is like sort of a take on these like corporate wellness apps, is sort of how I was understanding it. Which is something that you've like made work about a bunch before, or at least I was thinking of maybe not corporate, but just like you were saying, sort of like apps that are designed for psychosocial disabilities, or for people who have psychosocial disabilities. I was thinking of your meditation. Is that what that game is called? Which has a more doesn't feel very corporate. Like that feels like a I don't know. That is very very. I like that. That game doesn't have the sort of like ironic take that UnearthU does. What do you? Or
it doesn't have a bikini like Poison Ivy character, which I love, or whom I love.
I love that description of her.
I love all the animations that she gets to run through as well. Quite the character.
Yeah, meditation is actually my first game, and I've been thinking about it a lot when making this game, because in ways it's like quite similar. Like we'll see the home screen and kind of like going into different little like self-help exercises from this home screen can be really similar. But with that one and like this one, and I guess its end goal, there's like it's ironic in that some people think it really is a self-help app. And I was more just exploring like what my life was like, and what others who have to take up these like exercises and medical interventions to be able to like live a life, and trying to show it on like this day-to-day basis. And you know, some of those things work and some less than others. And here a much more cynical take, and maybe I've been cynical this whole conversation and feeling self-conscious about that cynicism, but this one a little more so, kind of with similar goals of portraying a life where you actually have to search out for like life-sustaining activities, but it's really hard to find them that actually work in this culture that like doesn't really want your life to be sustained, or it wants it to be sustained in order for you to work and go to work and like be part of capitalism. And so it's kind of a hard, difficult line to walk.
Yeah, it sort of reminds me of what you're saying, like even what you were saying earlier of the going into your fifth year of your PhD and like the burnout that comes with that. I feel like a lot of your work sort of references product, like the detrimental effects of productivity culture, which is such a big part of game development. So like it makes that in that way, the medium is sort of justified just in that in itself, as like that's sort of the toll that video games take. The toll that like technology takes on us, as it both relates to like work and to our mental health.
Yeah, and not even just in the production of games, which is a huge issue of crunch, but in the way that most games operate, which is like by the system of reward and taking up all of your time, and they take like 80 hours to play, and there's no like breaks involved in them. You're just supposed to like be able to play for 80 hours straight and like remember what happened, and things just yeah.
That's a good context to talk. I'd love to talk a bit more about time, because I feel like so many of your games like have time as this crucial sort of like a form of the game, but also something that the content of the game addresses a lot of the time. So your previous this I think that it would be the last big game you released, Ritual of the Moon, is very much about time. It's a game that happens over the course of 28 days, and you play it. I love it in the context of what you were just saying, because this is a game that you play for an amount of time every day, not for an hour, but I think it's like 5 to 15 minutes or something for that. And there's sort of a commitment aspect to it where you have to play it every day for 28 days in order to succeed. And then going on to this game, which occurs over the course of 7 days. I mean, it makes sense as a sort of, or I like this idea of it being a commentary on like this time-sucking aspect and behavioral manipulation that games do. But what are the other sort of like ways that you are interested in talking about time this way?
Yeah, I've just been thinking about meditation so long. Maybe like many people during the pandemic have gotten like so nostalgic, and so in that one was already thinking about time in terms of like mundanity and the everyday, and like that we often think of mental illness as like this huge traumatic events, or like things like suicide and hospitalization. But for many people, like what actually it's like the day-to-day things that are really draining, like taking medication at a specific time and having to get to therapy and doing all these breathing exercises and like these things that make each day livable. And so in Ritual of the Moon, I wanted it, which takes place over 28 days. They're very short plays and specifically designed for our phones, which most of us are on every day, and doing, like me, wasting a lot of time just scrolling because of how addictive it is.
Yeah, trying to avoid looking at that screen time function.
Yeah. Yeah, trying to find something that's actually like a reflective moment that can be offered, like as a space where we can like reflect on our own well-being or our emotional state. And so in Ritual of the Moon, you like go through all these meditational activities and like get this mantra, and like then you choose to destroy or protect the earth, because comets are coming to attack it every day. And then it kind of acts like a mood cycle or a mood chart, where you can see like the choices that you've made over the days, and to see like, oh, was I feeling like really destructive or angry the past 2 weeks? And like, because moods can get so big and kind of like distort how you think about yourself, or how I should talk about myself in this situation. But if I'm in a mood, I'll be like, I'm never going to escape this mood. This is how it's going to be forever. And so like finding like a little reflective area in the day. And so, and I find that exciting about video games, because, people are prepared to spend a lot of time on them, and we can use that time in like a different way for like a mundane and like daily check-ins that are more reflective. I think that can be really exciting. So in UnearthU, originally it was called, well, it's gone through many titles now, but it was called like How to Improve Your Life in 7 Days. And there's always like, the New York Times had 10 days to make your productivity better or whatever. There are all these like cells of like how much you can change yourself in such short amount of time, which is just like really ridiculous. And that all these like, also is looking at these productivity apps that like chart things, and how much like self-quantification happens on the phone, like tracking your steps and trying to improve it, and tracking your focus and your screen time, and just this like really exhausting forms of self-improvement that have gotten like congregated onto the phone, that has just been at least for me, like really hard to live with without making my life worse. And so it kind of, with UnearthU, these 7 days, there's like a story that unfolds and you find out more, but also just, yes, it's just, as we'll see more as we play through it, it's kind of walking a difficult line between like satire and earnestly trying to explore if there is something to this, if something can reparative or restorative happen on the phone once we undo some of this like perfectionism and productivity culture that has like embedded our technologies.
Right. It's almost like an attempt to balance out all the behaviorally manipulative design practices that all these apps and games on your phone have. You try to balance it out with apps that are like sort of self-punishing yourself into becoming more productive. That's a vicious cycle.
I think right at this point, there's a video that comes soon after I click next here. So I just wanted to prepare the audience for it as we sort of talk about the work itself.
So this is this is what you were sort of talking about in relationship to meditation, where they sort of start on this menu screen of options that you can choose, sort of like which one you want to follow for that day, as it were.
Oop, is this going to load it? Now it's loading aha, there we go. The menu screen. Which was the one? Yeah, what was I thinking of?
So in inspiration, it's the one there will be like an introduction video.
Great, we'll play that for the audience.
I'll turn up the audio for this a bit.
Yeah.
We at Further are so proud of you. Just by downloading our app and committing to 7 days together, you have already taken the biggest, hardest step. This 1 week,
I find this video very convincing
as
being something
so
that was
much
created by this company.
I also love the tiny plant, like there's the leaves in the corner, make it, Does that allow you to go back to the menu at any point? Yeah, exactly.
Matching my own character. Yes, it's a button to go back to.
Intelligence named KARE and our self-discovery program.
The footage that you sourced for this was, it's particularly effective.
Dispensing mindful exercise. Reflections and lectures on
Well, should I talk over this? I don't know. What are the...
I think so. Well, there's text. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a bit too loud. I guess we're turning it down now so you can hear. Yeah, I love this.
I'm more interested in the director's commentary.
When this comes out, everyone can hear that video again. They can just keep playing that video.
That's true. Yeah. I was feeling really like stuck creatively I had a lot of ideas of what I wanted to do next, but I felt like the earth is being destroyed, and it feels like there's so many I didn't feel like I didn't want to participate in a culture that is destroying the earth, and it was really hard to justify to myself making video games at this time. Like something that, the consoles are just, so much destruction comes from like consoles and from e-waste and from computers, and then the energy use of downloading and streaming games, and it's just like so massive. And I felt like how am I gonna make something when the best thing that we could probably do is to stop making things. And yet, like, the way that I kind of settled it with myself is like that I wouldn't make anything new, that I would just source things that already existed and sort of like compost them together. Nice. And so all of the imagery is like all found footage. The AI model, like I found her on the internet. The animations are all like free downloads, and yeah, so the only thing is like writing and then condensing all of this footage from all these different places, including the NFB, and like condensing it into one app. And that's kind of like the basis of the aesthetics in the videos, and in all parts, from her and her animations to the footage that was chosen.
That's so interesting, especially like given the context that you're in California and you're sort of within this bubble that is like like the sort of speculative tech world bubble that's constantly producing a new app. Of course, all these new proprietary technologies like the juicer machine, or what, I can't even remember the name. Juicera. And like all these new things that often aren't like maybe even under a guise of productivity or betterment of some, if it's not yourself, perhaps it's of your environment, but yeah, without the context for the greater impacts these things are having. I love this idea of composting assets, because it is also like it's something that people do out of necessity as well, or while they are indie gamers, when they're creating something small by themselves and they're relying on, like, I know John and I ourselves really rely a lot on animations that exist and prefab models, just because it's just so few of us on the team, but having like a design sense that is specifically also in tune with the way the message that you're putting across, the intention within the project is really and so starkly in opposition of where you kind of the environment of perhaps of like techie California that you exist or find yourself working within is super interesting.
Yeah. And two things. One is like, not only am I in California, I'm in the Bay Area, and so I feel like that's really informing this piece in ways that I'll look back and be like, oh yeah, that was a really, I was in the Bay Area at that time and surrounded by like this tech culture, and then pushbacks against this tech culture at the same time. And people like, everyone wears Patagonia and goes hiking, and even the punks like go hiking and go camping and then come back and then go work at a tech industry job, and kind of, and so, but it's also interesting coming from film, where like found footage films are like beloved, and it's not seen as like this thing that you do because there's no other option. Whereas in games, if you use something that's already been created, like people hate like the Unity assets or whatever. Like it's not a culture that's like taking that on as that's good. It's like you have to do everything yourself, and it has to be completely fresh and new. And it's just interesting, the two different media cultures that have formed around it.
Yeah, I would just say like it's got to come from like the one being so corporate and the other being like having a longer artistic tradition. Just like a longer
just being an older medium. Having that time and that context to evolve an appreciation for found or recycled or aestheticized footage.
Oh, in the context of like working in the Bay Area and studying, thinking about like psychosocial disorders, do you see this app sort of commenting on corporate like mental health wellness apps that do you see them as being more taking advantage of people in terms of like offering a solution or like offering some sort of care for themselves?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think that how do I say this? I think that I really still, and maybe I'll change my mind about this later, but I do think that there's a lot of possibility for technology to do good for people's mental health, including an app. Like I believe that there could be an app that is good for someone and for their mental health, and in whatever ways that could look. But the ones that exist now, like the therapy chatbots, these companies rarely are actually like participating with either cultures of psychosocial disability and communities of people with it, or even psychology and like, you know, that industry and field, and kind of making things that have very little validity and proof to them. And not only like if they work or not, the way that they're being made is like, it's very hard to find any of these tech companies that are done in a way that is actually beneficial to its workers and not completely extracting labor and destroying their own mental health. And, you know, in the process also like destroying the earth. And so like if, you know, one of these companies like puts out something that can be really good for its players, which I don't think has really happened yet, still they're so destructive to their workers. And it's just like that sort of double bind is what is being showcased in UnearthU. So we have this company Further that gives these promo videos that we see in the inspiration section. And they designed this AI, KARE, who's kind of there to like coach you along at it. So there is like kind of these levels of maybe distrust of the company, and yet maybe finding something that it is doing. And then as we find out more, so if we go into the discussion, each day there's different topics that KARE will talk to you about. And so it kind of starts off like what you might expect from one of these apps that just like sells you big ideas and like tells you about like habit and everyday ritual and like how to incorporate it into your life. But then as we go on within the story, you find out more about KARE's history and like how she has been created with Further, and like what is her relationship to these like two male creators and who are working in Silicon Valley, and you know, how their treatment of her and expectations of her as a worker.
You mentioned it's sort of, and it's, I mean, it's very much based on these real life applications of, I don't know what if you want to call it artificial intelligence technology, like the therapy chatbots you mentioned, which is like, I think that was one of the first uses of like a chatbot powered by a simple like Markov chain was
like Eliza, the
right.
Eliza project, also feminized.
Yeah, but this sort of connects to another through line in your work that I was interested in thinking about, which is this sort of like conversations or even just the representation of like non-human entities, or like and then even more so these conversations that you can have in a lot of your games with whether it's with nature itself, in like the earth is a better person than me sorry or I'll get like 80% of my words correct, you've done chatbot, the is the sexed chatbot game is that what, I can't remember what the title of it.
It's Sex Adventure.
Adventure, yes, awesome. Yeah, where in all these cases, it's sort of exploring just the conversation with sort of the non-human, if you want to call it that, but then especially this sort of idea of intimacy, which I think ties together with the thing you were talking about of like this new intimate connection with technology we have through our phones. So I guess to formulate that into a question, it's like I guess how this is part of a wider trend in society, I guess, like the text bots in therapy apps. How does this fit into the like sort of like wider research that you're doing about psychosocial disability, if that is a sort of legible connection that we can make?
Yeah, a lot of my pieces have to do with the non-human, and I have in the past and currently am invested in those discussions, and part of
We
the
have a
reason is
We have a non-human who's been like putting up a fuss for the last, just as soon as we turned the camera on, he was sleeping the whole day and now he's just been screaming and running around. Yeah, he knows.
He knows.
cute. We gotta see that face. We love that face.
The non-human.
The non-human face.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Such a cute cat. He's like really quirky.
Sorry to derail you. He was just screaming. He
No.
just kept screaming so close.
You're blessing the live stream. Yeah. His image. Yeah. I guess my first one of this was Sex Adventure, maybe Techno Tarot, and Techno Tarot maybe fits in more from what we were talking about, where there's a robot that gives you a tarot reading, and was very interested in like the ways. I was looking at my cat, who's now right here, but he doesn't like to be picked up, so I won't show you. I won't show you him. Yeah, my cat. No, Techno Tarot. Oh my gosh, now I'm just thinking about my cat. So cute. Techno Tarot is a robot that gives you a tarot reading, and I was interested in like how we're connecting to our phones and using them to reflect, and kind of the beliefs about technology like telling the future, and also just kind of the also is kind of like an ironic way of believing there's kind of random. I mean, I think the beautifulness about tarot is not if it's psychic or not, but that you're like reflecting on something with another person usually and talking about it. And with Sex Adventure, I think it's kind of similar to this in that it is a fake AI. Like, KARE here is not a real AI, or not even by like the machine learning standards or anything. Like I wrote her, everything that she says is written by me. And Sex Adventure is similarly. And in Sex Adventure, you originally texted a number, and then it was like a sext bot that kind of like responded to how you responded to it, and like would take you on different paths. And the kind of expectations around it were like, people expected it was for like straight men, and that it was like for pleasure, but often went down like really sad paths or weird paths, or would like confuse human sexuality and human gender, and like mix up body parts. And kind of interested in like the queerness of the non-human in this particular case, or like what robots might or AI might think of like human sexuality and human bodies. And in The Earth is a Better Person Than Me, it moves away from technology and thinks about different parts of the earth. And like you can go on paths where you talk to dirt, or you talk to the moon, or you talk to water. And again, was trying to put myself in a position of like, how would these different things look at humans, and like make sense of both sexuality and psychosocial disability, which is what The Earth is a Better Person Than Me is about. And here, kind of somewhat similarly, using KARE, who is designed to do something by these people, and yet maybe, as you find out later in the game, like can't hold those promises, or can't be so just cleanly cut off from her like emotional being and connection to the earth.
Yeah, a lot of, I feel like all of your sort of representations of AI often have this agency that that they sort of like in Sex Adventure. That I think that's one of the things that surprises you about it, is that the chatbot that you're like the expectation being that you're going to have like an intimate conversation with, it often sort of like, it's sort of like, I was playing it earlier, and it just like balloons to this more, ontological scale really quickly because of the chatbot's inner musings about like itself. And I love the idea of, or like, I love the idea of representations of AI and sort of that as being a big part of film history and like artist practices in sci-fi and stuff for the past while. But maybe we could go through and look at meditation, because I like this little one a lot. This one feels like the most, I don't know if we were talking about this maybe being sort of some of the narrative being quite ironic. This feels very genuinely like a useful thing. This part of the app.
I know. I was thinking, I mean, there's going to be an end state to the game that I'll share a little bit of, but after the 7 days, you'll still be able to go into the app. It'll just like look radically different than it does at the beginning, which is like, this corporatized thing, which has like pressures and chart. And at the end will be like much more like coming into the app and doing these breathing exercises. So in this meditations, they're like different breaths and breathing patterns that you do for about 2 minutes. And in that, we're on a computer version right now. So you kind of trace along with the length of the breath, which is the opening flowers. And there's a voice that you can hear that reads out the instructions, and it's about 2 minutes long. And yeah, it I think it's just nice. It's like, thinking like, oh my gosh, should I get into the wellness industry apps and just like start making breathing apps? Because I genuinely love this and would and do this on my phone. And I think like the phone is the first thing I look at when I wake up, like many people. And I've had to like block out all apps, like can't access apps before 10 a.m. because I'll just like stay in bed and like scroll. But instead I'll like go to this and actually like feel a lot better.
Yeah, it's funny. I think because the like app things that do this function is one of the like only really useful things for making my mind feel better that I've found on my phone. And it's funny because in a lot of ways it's just a timer, it's like it's a timer with some nice aesthetics to it in the case of
visualize and haptic, some haptic feedback as well with this one, which puts it a little more maybe a bit more exciting than some of the headspace options. I sometimes do find that is missing. I do like the animations quite a bit in Headspace, and when there's nothing to look at on the screen and I just have to close my eyes, I'm like, well, I guess so. I guess this is good for me. Anyway, you're continue. Yeah. I derailed you.
No, that was. I was just thinking about what you were saying about the haptics. Like that is, I think that even though the haptics, I remember seeing a similar app to this on an Apple Watch once, where it just like vibrated along with your breath, and I'm like, that's it. That's all that technology should be. I don't need anything more complicated than that. But yeah, I mean, this is I thinking about this as this this aspect of UnearthU as having this very real function. It's really nice to think of art as, even if part of the art is even like narrative, or maybe all doing some doing critique, which a lot of the story and the content of this app is doing, also having it perform a function, serve a function to you, seems very generous, or it's not a thing that you usually expect from art necessarily, or maybe either from video games.
Yeah, but I have found it's like a lot of pressure to put on ourselves. I don't know. That's like I'm partway through this game and kind of like feeling pulled in these different directions where I'm like, oh, I really want to explore this story, and yet maybe that's not the most like reparative, restorative thing that could happen. But I think it like takes us to a certain place where maybe we're more ready for it. But I think I'm just trying to think of it like so many video games and apps and technology is designed in a specific way to like consume our attention. And even if I'm definitely not setting out with the goal, like this is a therapy app, like definitely not. Like I think it's an art piece. And I do think our art and media can contribute to like thriving more in this world and like feeling reflective and feeling different feelings other than just like distraction or comfort, or like many games like anxiety and tenseness, that there's like many more feelings to explore. And so it's just like the goal is less to like have a function in people's lives than to contribute slightly to a changing landscape of media and what it can do and what are our feelings that can be expected from it. You got to humble your goals to like make art. I think for me, I have to.
Yes. Especially for technology, like making stuff with video games, because everything always seems to balloon out of control so quickly. If you aren't.
And people have like big. Oh, go ahead.
Just humble, like you said. Yeah, I think that's crucial.
Yes.
And people make. Oh my gosh.
No, I said sorry the delay. Please go.
It's been amazing that we've only just done this now. As far as that people have such high expectations of what video games can do. Like on both sides, the general like idea of video games would be like, it makes you violent, it makes you angry, it makes you murder people, like huge things. And then on the game study side and game developers, it's like they can make you more empathetic and make you a better person and can like change the world through playing games. Like there's such big expectations of games, and it's just really hard to live up to either of those.
Yes. That's really interesting, because something that like when Jonathan and I are talking with other artists who make games, what comes across a lot is the kind of expectations that are held up through interactions with technologies for users, that users expect a certain kind of interaction, or expect whether it's maybe a reward or like keeps their attention through certain things, or even just like looks really good or works really fast on their device. There's so many of those things that maybe as artists we don't necessarily have the capacity, or do we really want to like with what you said, come up with a million slick graphics that are entirely new and custom for your app? Do you is this something you find like the sort of coming up against people's expectations for tech, and maybe again this is particularly in the Bay Area where you are very really felt when you are sharing this work? Is this something that you can that you've struggled with, or that you identify in this issue?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I get is like, do you partner with psychologists and like to make psychology therapy games? And even after I give like lots of talks about the politics of disability and where I'm coming from in terms of thinking about psychosocial disability, it still comes up. And when I tell people like I make games about mental health or experiencing mental health, the idea, they only assume that I am talking about making games that will cure people. And like, I don't have an ethos of cure, and I don't think that that's like a goal of mine, nor should be a goal for anybody. And it should be about being able to live to our fullest and being able to thrive. And so that's like an expectation that I still feel like it's hard, because that's the biggest expectation I come up against, and in both an academic way and in an art practice way. And I think also just people want, not only do they think that that's like the way to think about mental health, which is to like get over it and to get cured and to like get better and move on, rather than like this is something that is like systemic and most people have to live with forever. And it's actually really damaging to have that sort of look at how to overcome it and move on. And lost my train of thought. And so that happens in games, academia, and it also happens in the industry because people want to monetize. Not only is like that the rhetoric about mental health, but they want not it within the art world, but within the industry of like, how do we make money from this? Yeah. Let's sell it to people who are like disabled and debilitated and being told that they need to like be cured and move on. And of course, like, I don't want to go against things that I'm saying before, which is I think that technology is doing most of us a real disservice, and it needs to be changed so that it can do us like better service and can make us feel things. And then in terms of like visuals and sleekness, I think I have not made a game that most people think like looks like a game. I guess meditation because it's pixel art and Techno Tarot pixel art. But other than those two, which, you know, news media has written that they're not really games, like, they're the jail of games. It's like, you know, an interactive art piece that like looks like a game but isn't a game. Like that's kind of the take on there. And then the other gamier pieces, like Ritual of the Moon, is all made by like handcrafted materials. I worked with two artists, Julia Gingrich and Rekha Ramachandran, who are just like the best artists. And so we handmade everything and scanned it and digitally manipulated it. And there's like nothing on the App Store that looks like that, or on Steam that looks like that. Like it doesn't look like what most people think games look like. And UnearthU, you know, similarly using an aesthetic that is not commonly like, it's not like low poly or pixel or whatever people are doing nowadays, trying to be like, we don't have to, games can look many different ways, and we don't have to like, we can use the things out there, like the common 3D look, but we don't have to, and we can like open up the spaces that they look like. And part of it also comes from, I'm not a visual artist, like I can't really draw. It takes me a long time to settle on an aesthetic that I can do. Like The Earth is a Better Person Than Me is like all like really thin drawings that took me a long time to do, but for an artist would go by really fast. But to be able to have it like look good at like a level that I can do took a long time to like cultivate that aesthetic. And I was like not trying to imitate other games.
We've got an audience question that specifically talks about looks, about aesthetics, from Lauren Fournier, who says hi, and she says, I remember your meditation and breathing apps from a few years back. Shout out to KARE. Here you seem to have shifted away from those more lo-fi graphics / net arty graphics towards more video, etc. I find the lo-fi to be a bit refreshing for its contemporaneity, as it stands out from the prevailing visual language of social media. And she asks for your thoughts on that.
Can you repeat the last part for me?
Oh yeah,
sorry,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
In UnearthU, you seem to have shifted away from the more lo-fi graphics of KARE and perhaps meditation, and towards more video. And she says she finds the lo-fi aesthetics to be a bit refreshing for its contemporaneity, as it stands out from the prevailing visual language of social media. And if you have thoughts on this, like,
is that is that the sort of like I don't know, anachronistic look of the lo-fi aesthetics? Is that something you're going when you go for that? Is it because it sort of runs counter to the polish of social media?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel really sick of the way that apps and social media look. They look all the same, and they look like very sleek and boring, and every icon looks the same as the next, and every company logo looks the same as the next, and they all use like very similar colors, and it's all just very like over it, and it's so similar. And so part of it is trying to find an aesthetic, as I said, that I feel like I can work with and that I think is interesting, and then also just feels more like genuine to the piece, like finding something that fits with the idea of the piece, rather than like, oh, here is an aesthetic that I can do, and so I will apply it to anything. And partly is because I'm not like a good visual artist that has a style, and so I feel like much more dedicated to the concept and then reframing what I can do for that concept.
Um, I think the thing you were mentioning earlier about the aesthetic of UnearthU, where you're really working with uh, pre-existing assets, or maybe you could think of them as like ready-mades, or sort of. I think it's sort of another form of lo-fi, but one that's maybe more recognizable to the people working with who are like also working in the same medium, because you can even like recognize the sort of like Mixamo animations, or something, as they have a particular quality to it, which I love. I love this kind of lo-fi a lot, because it sort of is a bit of a like polished looking lo-fi. But like you were saying earlier, it's I think it speaks to working practices of like, oh, we, as being small artists, we don't have the resources to make everything ourselves.
Yeah. And yeah, these animations are so clearly like I they're really hard to work with, and they didn't in my head I was like, yeah, this is going to work flawlessly. And then when I saw them, it's like, because this is just, I guess people who have worked in 3D before know this, but I had not worked in 3D before, and so I guess I didn't recognize that this would be the issue. But I was like, her face doesn't emote,
Yeah,
and
right.
it's like it makes all of her movements like look kind of sarcastic and kind of ingenuine. And like I thought I like downloaded all the Mixamo like small ones, like kind of just pacing or like waiting around or breathing, and they're just so you can't tell what they are on the screen, and they have like no emotion behind them, even if they are like more realistic. So instead decided to like go bigger with them, and that's why we got her like dancing and swaying around, and they're kind of like weird, but I really I've come to I love her and her weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to, before, just I feel like the aesthetics could talk about a lot, but I'd also like to talk about the your writing practice, and like how, if, because obviously all your games are sort of come from writing, and then especially come from like sort of um, the these branching narratives that you create for your games. So that was maybe, how did you like what how has like this practice of like creating branching narratives evolved for you over time? And then maybe even if you just could tell us a little bit about how you write, especially for these like super complicated. So branching narrative is sort of like a choose your own adventure story or something, but it's something where you can follow all these different paths. Yeah, I'd just love to hear about how you go about doing that.
Yeah. I really like writing. I liked writing before I liked doing anything else. And so that's in part what drew me to video games. Not that I thought any video games I played like had good writing, but that there's the excitement of a like interactive multi-linear story was fun. That a story could go on in different paths. And I haven't done anything so complicated that I really have a good system for it. Most of the time, like these post-it notes actually behind me are this game, are UnearthU. They're like detailing what are the different discussions that happen each day over the 7 days. So there's like 7 sets. And then, so I have often, how I will do it is I'll have post-it notes and like arrange them in specific ways. And that's what I did for the Earth is a Better Person Than Me Too, which had 7 paths that kind of, well, I don't even remember how many endings it had, like maybe 20, and kind of intersected with each other. And I was in an artist residency at the time that I was making it, so I had like a wall that was just covered in post-it notes of like where the stories like branch off to each other. And then I'll use Ritual of the Moon is much easier. There's maybe 6 different endings. I don't remember, but it's a much smaller amount of narrative change. Like, it doesn't break off into like day 18 or something. And that one I just use like a mind map. Yeah. And then try to keep track of all of them. The Earth is a Better Person Than Me maybe was like the most complicated to keep track of, and I don't think I did like an amazing job of like the crossover points. Like, I kind of thought of them as more linear stories that branch out more subtly rather than like a really complicated web. So post-it notes.
Do you input those post-it notes into Twine? Is that what you use for?
No. I just like sit at my desk and look at my post-it notes. I'm like revealing that maybe this is like a horrible system, but I'll look at my post-it notes and then I'll write it in a journal. Like, I'll write everything just by hand. So everything is written by hand before I type it out.
Okay. Cool.
And the way that, journals work is they're linear. Yeah. So I have to like label everything pretty well, and then I'll go in and to the code and put it where it goes.
Yeah, awesome. Maybe
it's a great detail.
Just a little bit more about like work, like what your work as an academic and an artist is like. Kat, you had a question about academia sort of.
Yeah, and I just wanted also to encourage if the audience had any more questions to please just type them in the chat. But I have a lot of questions. Yeah, I'll continue with my personal interest. As you are both an artist and an academic, you're working in games. Both of these both of those have their own form of feedback, which is like peer review in academia, and you have the critique model in art school. But interesting with games, you kind of have to play it in order to understand and engage with that. And again, with the games like yours, that they take time. How have you found that? How can you access like the resources of peer review and critique through game work, and how do those things change in response to games?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think most of the time I don't really have access to enough people to play it consistently. I took one grad seminar class that was grad critique, where we all like made a project and critiqued each other, and it was so amazing. And that was where the Earth is a Better Person Than Me was first developed, and the first storyline was the moon storyline made there. And so that was really great because we had 10 weeks together that was dedicated to showing our work and it's changing, and playing it live, that there would be like a live playtester that played it in front of the group to its fullest and had the time for that. And that's so rare. So most of the time I create a Google form and ask people to play it in their own time, and then fill out the Google form. And I try to ask like specific questions that I'm wondering about, but it's a lot less helpful than if people actually had the time and space to be there in person. And then about academic work, I think because I've been in like art schools for so long, I feel comfortable taking critique on both my writing and on my art projects, and also have been like just really lucky in my career in it that many people aren't. Like, there can be really terrible teachers and really terrible classes and really terrible communities that like are actually not supportive and are really demanding you do a specific thing. And so it's not only that I am, used to getting critique, but also have been very fortunate in the spaces that I get it from. So now it's just about like how much time people have to read my work and give feedback. Which is hard because, academics work too much, and it's very hard to have someone play something like. So for the most part, maybe more pertinent to the question is that these time-based games almost never get play tested based with players actually following the timeline. Almost never. I'll like make a version like this one. Like this is supposed to be played after we go to reflection. And the final version, it'll lock the player out until the next day, and then it will open up what's going to happen. But once we go into reflection, it'll just like take us to day 2, because it's like a demo version where we're like seeing the content. So that's often the way that it's play tested, which is not the way that it's actually played. And if I had like more money and could pay people for that kind of time, then I could get it. But I don't think like Ritual of the Moon was ever played for 28 days straight before coming out. Maybe I did, but that's about it. It's really hard to do.
Yeah,
that's super interesting, and I feel relatable. Maybe.
Sort of another resource that is sort of like considered to be crucial for like for corporate game development, like doing like quality assurance testing, but something that's just not accessible for artists at all, especially when like time is your medium. We have
another audience question.
This one coming from our friend David Plant in Toronto.
Hey David.
Do you feel the work needs to be nurtured and moderated, or do you open your hands and let it fly free?
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, sort of back to this, like the non-human entity.
Okay. That's such a great question. And I'm trying to think of like, what am I, if what I say is going to be true. I want to say that. Okay. In my process that I do for writing and designing, it's very ritualistic. And I need a lot of time for it. And that time, so I need a lot of downtime. Like, I think I can work pretty fast, but to be able to work fast, I need a lot of downtime beforehand. Yeah. So it's very hard for me to like be in academia where you're supposed to work 7 days a week constantly on emails and then switch into making creative work. Because it's just really hard. So I feel like I need to like, create a little nurture myself to be able to have it flow freely. Flow freely, if that makes sense. So I have to like make sure I have the time and the space and like the right energy, and I like totally follow my energy, which is probably not anyway, that's what I do. I'm not going to say it's not the right thing to do, but I like try to be in the right mood for what I'm doing and have the right amount of time. And then once that happens, then it will just flow freely. In my experience, as soon as I make the time and the space and I'm in the right headspace for it, it comes very well.
Yeah, that's really nice. That idea of flow, like being both in control and not quite in control of it, trying to set up the right circumstances. We have a question from our Discord, which is
very cool. People can join. Anyone can join the Discord.
Cool.
This is the link. Wait, I'm trying to get the right angle right here. Around here. Sorry. Yeah, there you go. From Korax. And this is a really nice, perhaps a question to wrap up on as well, in respect for your time. Korax asks, I'm curious, Kara, if there's been anything in games, or any games for that matter, that excite you or inspire you lately. And also says, P.S. I remember Sext Adventure, such a whoa moment playing that and being surprised by the bot's text.
Oh, this is such a bad time to ask me about this. Like, I played a game in like, I don't know when the last time I played a game is, like 8 months. And I'm trying to think of like the last one that I felt excited about. I'm sure there are like good games out there.
Maybe.
Oh my gosh. There are interesting things happening out there, and
I think this is another another funny thing of being an artist who's interested in games is, and also trying to fit all the other different parts of your life together in order to make it sustainable and survivable, is this thing that we've talked about a bunch of times now, of games just sucking so much time out of you.
They do, because they require you to complete it. I mean, okay, I just got a 5-star island in Animal Crossing, but I also was not working on my art projects for a while.
Oh, you know what? I did play Animal Crossing.
Oh, you did?
So that's the one but I don't feel any which way about it. I will not say that as an exciting game. Yeah, so I think I know I want to, like, I wish I could answer this question better. I just feel like so not excited about games and really frustrated with the games industry, of course, for all of the reasons to be frustrated at it. And so I don't want to what am I saying? Like, I don't want to definitively say that there's nothing I'm excited about, but at the moment I'm just feeling really disenchanted with the kind of stuff that I'm seeing, the moves that the industry is making, like the way that it is like really stifling artists and pushing artists out of it. That the app stores take 30% of sales to go to like their mega corporations that already, you know, they don't need our artist money. They need like Ubisoft money, but they're taking 30%. And it's just like, it's so frustrating. And I admire any artist trying to make work in that realm where it is almost completely run by corporations at this time.
Yeah. And then there you're faced with the sort of like the ballooning amount of work, not corporate work, but artwork that's being made in video games, like on video game platforms, especially like itch.io, then also like the app stores, where there are interesting games, but then whereas like the big corporate games are trying to take all your time just to play whatever, like The Last of Us or whatever new big corporate game, for like finding the actual good stuff, the like things that have like artistic intent, then it just takes a lot of time to find the things, because there's just so much of it, which is such a funny.
So maybe I'll
problem.
say, I'll just say, like, if people have games that they like and they think are good, to please share them with me.
Yes, you should join the
excited.
We can share them now that we're all in the same Discord server, so we can share them all in the Discord. Another reason to join the Discord.
That was really nice talking, and it was I can't believe that's been a whole hour and a half.
Yes.
So thank you so
much. And we
much.
got through like 4 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we got through a single day, but hopefully
well, we'll share where you can get KARE's other games as well.
I certainly look forward to making this making UnearthU a part of my life for a week. Living with it for a week.
Yeah, this game will be released
in the future.
But yeah, KARE has lots of games on her itch page.
Yeah. That
we will link, and you're also on Instagram.
I am, and Twitter.
And Twitter for people, so we can we'll link all those social media so people can find you. Thank you so much for joining. It's been really fantastic to be able to share, something that is in process, which is so rare. It's so rare to be able to see a work that is being developed, and really exciting, and one that is particularly exciting in that we're just getting all the details up and to post. But thank you so much, KARE.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was great to talk to you all.
Okay.
We're gonna
good night, everybody.
Do the out video and the loop.